Welcome to Leadership Speaking Radio, the podcast for leaders and changemakers who want to learn how to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection to their peers, teams, and customers in order to build better relationships, better their bottom lines, and become better leaders. My name is Dr. Laura Penn. I'm the founder of the Leadership Speaking School, and I'm your host. Visit my website, theleadershipspeakingschool.com, in order to find out more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time you speak. Now, let's get straight into our topic. Warm greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Leadership Speaking Radio. It is a delight to be back with you. And I have another episode in my love collection for you here today. It is episode number 67, and I'm calling it the TED-talk, the ultimate love letter. So are you ready? Roll up your shirt sleeves. Let's get into this topic together. I was recently on a podcast with my good friend and mentor, Maria Franzoni, and she is an expert in helping professional speakers to book more gigs with speaker bureaus and get more keynote stages. And I'm working with her to have her help me with that work as well. But she was talking to me on her podcast called the Business of Speaking podcast about the craft of leadership speaking and how I consider it a performing art. And honestly, coming off of that podcast interview and thinking about that topic, I am so ready to keep talking about it. So if you haven't heard this podcast with her already, this episode with Maria Franzoni and I, go ahead and go over to her podcast and listen to it. I'll put it in the show notes so that you have the link. It's worth hearing that as kind of a, background to what I'm talking about here today. But let's consider this the continuation of that conversation, where I can really get into the details with you about what it takes to create a absolutely stunning and remarkable TED Talk. I'm delighted, actually, first of all, to know that TED Talks are still a thing. There was a period a couple of years ago where I was worried about them. Yes, we had COVID. It was harder. The TED Talks went online. They became quite remote, literally. And they've sort of trickled back over the years. And I'm happy to see that the quality of many of these talks is still there. Because what was starting to happen pre-pandemic, and it made me very worried, was that quite a few of these talks were becoming really diluted. Just, kind of PowerPoint presentations on a big stage. But that, of course, is not what a TED Talk is. A TED Talk is a whole other creature. It is something that has been made of you and from you with love. It is a topic that you know so well and so deeply because you are an expert, and that has a message in it that is an idea worth spreading. This is the nuts and bolts of what a TED Talk is. And if you think it's anything other than that, you're wrong. It's a mistake to think of it as, I'll just put together some PowerPoint slides and speak off the cuff so that I can be authentic. That is made with no love. But the version of a TED Talk that I'm about to talk to you about now is the one that's going to be made with love. And you'll understand what this means as I get going. So the first stage of this, in this process, is to have that conversation with the organizers. That's the stage in the process. So you've been accepted as a speaker. Now you're having that chemistry call to figure out what you're going to be talking about and to really get on board with the theme of what the event is. And the organizers have a job to do. It's not just you serving their event. They're serving you what you need to know as well. In this conversation, you are harvesting all of the background information that you need so that you can get going with the next phase. So what is inside this harvest? You want to know about the venue. You want to know how many people are going to be sitting in that venue. You want to know about what the stage looks like. You want pictures of what former stages have looked like so that you know the layout and what's where. You want to know, and I'm not kidding, this is very serious, the size and dimension of that red circle rug. Because you are going to be rehearsing every rehearsal with that size, with that dimension staged so that you are moving around in that circle and so that you don't get off of that circle because then you're out of the camera range. So this is a call where you're doing your reconnaissance. You want to know what kind of microphone you're going to be using. Is it going to be a head microphone? Is it going to be a handheld microphone? Or is it going to be a clip microphone, right? The more specs, the more details that you have about this event, the better. Is there a changing room, right? What are the other resources that are available for you there as a speaker? Who are the other speakers? All of this background information is phase 1 in this process. And this is a really important phase because this sets the tone for what you need to know when you get to that rehearsal stage, when you're going to start rehearsing and getting ready for the delivery. So now that you've done that, the next phase is probably my favorite stage of all. I've delivered 4 TED Talks, and I've supported more than 100 speakers to do TEDx-talks. And so, it's not my first rodeo, but I can tell you that this next part is the part where your mind opens, because that's the theme of this next stage, stage 2, opening. This is where you need to open your heart, your mind, to this idea that you are going to be giving life to. You actually need to go through a moment of time and budget well here because, in my opinion, the best amount of time for the production and the rehearsal delivery of a TED Talk is 3 months. This phase should probably take a couple of weeks where you're letting in the energy of the talk that you're going to give. You are opening up the channels. You are having a sensory experience. This is how I do it. I activate my senses. I go to art museums to see new works and pieces. I get curious about trying different recipes and want to amplify and heighten my sense of taste. I go to new restaurants then as well, which is always a good reason to go out for a new restaurant experience. I read things that inspire me or that awaken me or that heighten how I think about something, right? So in this opening stage, you are kind of letting your antennae up from the top of your head and your whiskers out from the side of your face. How's that for a vision? If you don't see this on a video, folks, I'm actually using my body to draw what I've just said. But if you don't see this and you're listening on the podcast instead, you have to imagine this for yourself. So you are a sensory creature. That's how you're made. That's your design. This stage is about activating those senses so that you have more awareness. You see colors more deeply and with more detail. You smell more clearly. You touch more sensitively. You get the point. Why is this important? Because you are letting in these sensory experiences so that you can grow. This is the imagery here. You can grow this new seed of an idea. You want to give yourself the opportunity to be able to really go with the flow in your thoughts and allow yourself to think over here to the left and then to the right of the left and then over here and down there and right? You want to have these different dimensions where you can think about your topic in different ways and have total and complete freedom with no editing to just download your feelings. And this brings me to my next part about this phase, where you have now purchased a book or a notebook of some sort, where you have pages to write in. Because when you have this opening phase, you need to be collecting those thoughts, those strings of ideas somewhere, right? And that's what's going on. And I do this, and some people think it's a bit weird, but I don't care. I have this notebook that I've bought. And every talk I give, I have a new notebook. So I have quite a collection now over the years. But every notebook is that journey for that talk, because that talk that you are creating is a piece of art. It is something that has been created from scratch with love. So you have this notebook, I have this notebook next to my bed, because you know that, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you've had a dream, or you have a sentence, or you're thinking about something and you need to write it down. So next to the notebook, have a pen so that you have this opportunity to write down those nighttime thoughts. Or if you get woken up in the morning by the thoughts, you have a place to write them down right away. So you're in phase 2 now. After the reconnaissance phase of phase 1, phase 2 is the opening phase, this sensory letting in phase, this notebook, this writing phase of beginnings. Now you're ready to jump into the next phase. Remember this window of 3 months, right? So it's about a month and a half in the best case scenario for you to create the content. And it's about a month and a half for you to rehearse that content. That's why it's 3 months. So let's go back now to phase 3. Phase 3, of course, is about the content creation. Now that you've had this time to marinate and gestate and nourish some of these thoughts, some of these ideas for this work of art that you're going to bring to life, begin to write. Write full sentences. Have this notebook near you so that you get sentences captured. There's also the method that I highly recommend that I call walking and talking. This is a way of using your smartphone voice memo. So you figure out the voice memo function and you're standing up or you're walking around, or if you're like me, you're walking with Nordic sticks on a hike and you've got the phone recording and you're speaking out loud. And this movement, of the body helps movement of the mind. So this is a great way to download your thoughts and ask yourself who, what, where, why, when, and what if questions. Ask those questions in relation to your topic and answer those questions with the voice memo capturing what you are saying. 2 things are going to happen here. 1, you're going to be in a stream of flow because your body is moving, so your voice is moving and your mind is moving and the thoughts are moving. That's number 1. 2, you're capturing these sentences on your voice memo. And these sentences are spoken words. You're going to write, ideally, the way you speak, not the way you write, right? So when I work with a lot of university professors to teach them how to speak on camera, for example, for MOOCs, massive open online courses, the biggest hurdle to get over is that they've written a scientific paper that they've put into the teleprompter, and now they're going to try to say those words that are in the teleprompter that are of the scientific paper ilk. And it doesn't work. And they can't remember anything, and they stumble over their words. So doing it this way, the walking and talking method, now you've got a method where you are speaking the way you speak. How about that? In creating the content. So you can pour those words into the content creation. And when you get to the delivery phase where you're rehearsing and learning the words, it's going to be a lot easier. Also, another win is for the audience. They're going to understand what you are saying, right? You're not using complicated jargon or over detailed descriptions that have run-on sentences. So this is this content creation phase. This is the phase of creating the words, the composition. Take time here. Your first iteration is not your final script. It's going to be maybe 5 or 7 or 9 different versions. Because each time you are writing, you are polishing and honing the thought. And when you get to the, let's quote this, end, because there's never really an end, like any piece of art never has an ending, you could keep going, but when you get to the end, in quotations, and you are ready to jump over to the delivery rehearsal side, then you've got sentences that you can speak, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to remember them. So this is that content creation phase where you're really pouring everything you've got in terms of your words and your ideas. And your big ideas need to be well structured. You need to be writing for the audience. And this is confusing in a TED scenario. And by the way, when I say TED, I mean TEDx, I mean TED, right? Anything with a TED. This is confusing because a performer often doesn't know, or a speaker doesn't often know, who am I making this talk for? They can get confused because they don't know if it's for the people who are there in the room that evening, in the audience, the live audience, or if it's the people watching online. And this video of their TED Talk will be online in perpetuity for the rest of their lives and beyond. So who is the audience? And I think it's important to serve both. I think that there's a version of a TED Talk where you've rehearsed it to meet the people in the room where they are, and that content and the way you've delivered that content is in such a living way that it can live on in the ether of the internet forever. So these are important things to think about. And another element in this topic of this third part of the content creation is, you have permission to keep editing until a certain point. There has to be a natural stopping point where you stop editing and you have to now start rehearsing. And you kind of know when this is because you feel it. You feel that you've got the content. It is polished. It is in a place where you've refined it. You've edited it. You can feel into it. And a really important thing to do as you keep going with your iterations is to read your content out loud. So just reading and looking at the text and, reading in your mind is something you'll be doing, but read the words out loud and they take on their own meaning. Read the words out loud and you feel the content more than if you read them just silently in your mind. So this is another way to keep the words flowing, that you're reading the words out loud. And it's amazing. It's almost like a magic trick. When you do this, you'll find that you refine the sentence, you'll say it better, you'll change some of the wording, and the structure will maybe be influenced by you reading it out loud. So this is a win-win as well for how you are creating content. Now you're ready to slip into the fourth element, or the fourth part of this process. Hi folks, it's just a short intermission, a little break to share some really exciting information with you. Something that I have been working on behind the scenes now for a couple of months that I am opening and starting in February. I'm calling it the Leadership Speaking Studio. And this is a space for professional speakers, industry leaders, and change makers to come to work on the craft of public speaking. And inside of these 3 days, February 6th, 7th, and 8th of this year, it's going to be a roll up your shirt sleeves, get into it, no nonsense, sweat equity experience. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's a studio. I mean, we are going to be working and immersing and experiencing the craft elements of public speaking, leadership speaking, so that you work on the content of a talk or a project that you have and that you really care about and that matters, and that you figure out how to deliver that content with gravitas, using craft elements. This is the studio, and I am looking for professional speakers who know that they've reached a place in their professional speaking where they're good at the business of speaking, but they can still use help and work on the craft elements of actually delivering their talks. I'm also looking for industry leaders, people who are leaders in their field and who want to elevate and heighten their leadership through effective communication and leadership speaking. And of course, change makers, people who are busy changing the world and making it a better place, but who need the tools in order to say what they mean and mean what they say. And that's it. This is something I'm incredibly excited about. To find out more, it is all out there for you on the website, www.theleadershipspeakingschool.com, and scroll down to the section about the studio. That's where you'll find it. So let's now return to our podcast episode. Now that your content is ready, you now need to end the content creation phase. Maybe you're a month and a half in at this point. You've had time and space and opportunity to create this content. It has lived in you. It has marinated. You've woken up writing words and sentences and strings of thoughts down. That part is now done. Now you step over into the delivery rehearsal phase. And in the best case scenario, you've got a month and a half. That's right. A full month and a half. And here now you are rehearsing your content through different layers. You're doing the vocal layer, how are you going to use your voice? You're doing the body layer, where you're going to be on stage in space and time, on that red rug, right? Not going to the far end of the stage, but how you're using that space that you've been given. That's what you're doing for a month and a half. And believe me when I tell you that you will learn your text by heart. It will become a part of you. Because let's not be confused. A TED-talk, TEDx-talk, is a scripted talk. It is not something that you speak from bullet points and that is different every time you say it. That is not the way you're going to be authentic. I'm making, quotation marks here as I say the word authentic. It might surprise you to hear that to be truly authentic, to be you in that moment with those people listening to you in that space, to be truly there and present, you have rehearsed this talk till it becomes a part of you. When you know it so well that you could recite it anytime, anywhere, anyhow. That's when you are ready with the delivery rehearsal phase, and not before. It's a very fine line of when to stop and when to keep going with rehearsal. If you sound like a robot, if it's blocky, if it's not coming out well, if you keep needing to look at your notes, you're not ready. That can't be on stage. You're going to forget your text and you'll be full of tension. That's not going to be the performance of your life. You are ready when you effortlessly say the words. They just flow out of you. Now you can be yourself. Now you can unwind into the moment and just be there, present at the ready with your audience. Now it's performance ready. So that is an incredibly important marker for whether you're ready or not. And a lot of people will make the mistake of not being in that flow state with the content and thinking that they can do it without their words. They can't. That's when people freeze like a deer in the headlights. That's when people forget what they're going to say. And that's where people have these blackout experiences where they're traumatized by it because they forget their text on stage and they're just stunned into silence. And the audience is feeling the awkwardness and you're feeling the awkwardness and the stress. You can't be authentic in that moment. You will only survive in that moment. You will not thrive. So you get to the end of that, you get over that hurdle by learning it so well that it becomes of you. It's in your DNA. That's now the conclusion of your rehearsal. So now you get to do the fun part. You need to figure out what you're going to wear, what kind of shoes you're going to wear, How can you move in the clothes that you have? This is another consideration for what you're going to wear. And you don't want to wear something that's so loud and bold that it takes away from what you're doing, right? You also don't want to wear something that's wrinkly or that looks like it hasn't been kept. Your outfit is a part of your speaking performance, and you need to choose it carefully. You need it to support you on that stage. Literally, it needs to support you, right? Not things falling off or things fitting badly, but it needs to support your message. It needs to be so that the audience can see you and pay attention to what you're saying at the same time. You don't want to be remembered for the outfit that you are wearing. You want the outfit to harmoniously merge with your speaking performance so that they dance together. That's the ultimate. Make sure you've tried this outfit on. Make sure you can sit in it and stand up in it. And when the big day comes, make sure that you have it in a garment bag, that you're not wearing it from, when you wake up that morning until 5 o'clock when it's your time to deliver your talk. You put it on beforehand and you keep it ironed and, away from coffees and things that can stain as much as you can. So there you are. That's the process. And if you've listened to this podcast series long enough, you know that there's another piece that's missing from this, which is, of course, your warm-up, your preparation for the day of, the performance of. And that is very much a part of this process. You've thought about it days before. The way you go to bed before you wake up the next morning to deliver your talk that day is part of the plan. You eat food that is well digested. You have a good night's sleep. You do something where you're not tense and stressed. You wake up in the morning the day of. You have a good breakfast. You do things that put you in a place of being present and calm and harmonious. And then you give yourself time to warm up. You warm up your body. You warm up your voice. You warm up your mind. You warm up your heart. And now you're ready because that content is of you. Your body is ready to deliver it. Your instrument has been tuned. Off you go. How about that? That is the process of delivering a good TED Talk in a nutshell from my many years of supporting other speakers to do it and doing it myself. If you are delivering a talk like this, it is a creature in and of itself. It is a creature that you have to pour your time and love and attention into because it matters. It's a talk worth sharing and spreading into the world. So that is how it works. And that's why I've called this episode a TED Talk, a love letter, the ultimate love letter, because this is all about what you are pouring into the process so that the outcome is poured in to the hearts and minds of your audiences who are both live and online. That's it for now. To learn more about how to deliver a TED Talk, watch really good ones. One of my favorite ones is Jill Bolte Taylor's TED Talk. It's called My Stroke of Insight. It really has all the dimensions, I feel, of what a good TED Talk should have, where the speaker is teaching the audience something, it's making the audience feel something, and is making the audience want to do something at the end. I write about this also in my book, which is called Nowhere Left to Hide, Leadership Communication Skills That Every Leader of the Digital Age Must Know. This is a book that is available on Amazon and as a Kindle. So this would be a really good companion to you preparing for this TED Talk, really creating that content that lives and preparing for that delivery that is present and at the ready. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to end this podcast episode. Let me take you to the finish line. I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed delivering it. Subscribe now to the Leadership Speaking Radio podcast to be sure not to miss an episode. And don't forget to visit the website, www.theleadershipspeakingschool.com, to learn more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time you communicate with your peers, teams, and customers, or on TED Talks. So that's it for now. Remember to subscribe. Tell your friends, your family, your colleagues about this podcast, and let them know that it exists. If you're enjoying the fruits of it, then other people would love to know about it as well. Also, don't forget that this is work that is embodied, so get your mind in it, get your heart in it, and get your body in it. All of those things work to make you a better communicator. So that's it for now. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.